Welcome back to another fun-filled adventure of hijinks and hilarity, folks. As previously stated in the last episode, we've got quite an interesting handful of stories on today, and one of them in particular, I think will be the highlight of today's look through the early Sonic comics. But why don't we begin our next mountain of issues with number 11. As you can see, the comic cover hasn't improved all that much. Still, a standard art style, laid-back colour scheme, and of course, we have our desperate writers shoehorning one of their throwaway jokes on the front cover. Perfectly normal day, really. Today's episode, the good, the bad, and the hedgehog. So, what, is Sonic chaotic neutral? I don't get it. So it seems like Robotnik has taken the ample opportunity to have his waterlogged city from the previous story convert itself into a pollution machine. What a friggin' surprise. And no sooner is Sonic informed of this catastrophe, is he then given direct access to the Cosmic Interstate, which is just floating around in the sky, it seems to be. But Sonic takes the wrong branching path and ends up in a Mobius that looks the same as his, but different. How different?
Well, if you took your main characters and their personalities and then put them in front of a mirror, you get the fuckiest of all mofos in all of Mobius.
Yep, we're doing one of those stories in comic books where the alter ego of our main hero isn't the main villain or, say, a rival with a character to hold their own. We just have evil versions of ourselves. And slightly less evil doctors, apparently. Look, long story short, Sonic runs into, I don't know, dark grease jacket wearing Sonic, John Travolta, and he explains that Sonic took a wrong turn on the Cosmic Interstate and has now ended up in their world. One Stardust Speedway race later, and Sonic manages to lock the fucker up, hightail it back to Mobius Prime with a magic vacuum that he uses to suck up the pollution gunk, which also somehow destroys the pollution plant, and Son Alley confirmed. Next, beat the clock.
If you say so.
You have it coming!
Coconuts is up to his old tricks again, kidnapping all but 2 of the Freedom Fighter faction members, and while Bunny could easily team up with Sonic and help him deal with this mess, this is strictly a Sonic story. There is nothing to really talk about with this story. It's just a bunch of colourful bits of craziness that might keep your kid entertained for a couple of minutes at best. Though, I do kind of admire the attention to the maze that's drawn here. I used to draw mazes a lot as a kid, so this is kind of nostalgic looking at it now. On to our next story, and one that I feel compelled to call the Sweet Sweet Galaxy portion of our little short story, if you will. Sonic stuffs his face full of diabetes-inducing chili dogs, and he takes a trip to Doseyland to find himself in the world of food-based OCs, taking on the form of Sonic the Chili Dog. This is a weird episode. It's not all that different from any standard Sonic adventure compared to the others, aside from a reject Sonic Generations mod that I know for a fact will never be made. Who am I kidding? It's the internet, there's nothing different. It's just a select compilation of fast food puns, so if you like those, well, this is your Arcadia for them, I guess. Here's the weird thing, though. Not 5 pages into the story does the dream sequence suddenly end. Do we then suddenly transition to the end of the story, with Sonic eating more chili dogs for his birthday? Okay then, moving on to our next issues. It's Sonic the Hedgehog in A Timely Arrival. Sonic is out and about, depositing Robotnik's armada back to him, which you'd think they'd use all the spare robot parts to build weapons or fortify their homes or something, and Robotnik decides that he's going to build a time machine. Just like that, out of the blue, he just wants a time machine. Back at Knothole Village, Sonic and Tails walk in on Sally having an existential crisis over a soap opera. Again, I don't get why they have televisions in Knothole, even when it's supposed to be non-canon, given the fact that they don't install TVs for a long time. But upon turning on the news, they discover another one of Robotnik's rascally inventions that's trying to cut down the Great Forest. Man, Smokey's gonna be pissed. Speaking of pissed, Sonic promptly demands that Robotnik stops his industrious nature before being tricked into being covered in Nickelodeon slime which sends him back in time. Funny, I thought Time Stones, Chaos Emeralds, and Time Posts were supposed to fulfill that role. He promptly lands in the era of the Flintstones, and we're given another BioWare dialogue response choice through these speech bubbles. We find out that Sonic is in one of those alternative timeline stories, where the main characters are cloned to look like different versions of himself and his friends, just in a different time period. Sly Cooper Thieves in Time. So while Robotnik in the present time promptly forgets that there is more than one existing freedom fighter, the classic Sonic shows the freedom fighters of the past the ways of the outside world, and prevents himself from evolving into Sonic the Mole. Which genetically wouldn't make sense, but comic book logic, it tends to fuck with continuities. And so, through the power of second guessing, the freedom fighters of the future managed to bring Sonic back to the original timeline, and they never used the time-traveling device ever again. Add that to the list of other plot-convenient machines and disguises that they'll never use ever again. On to our next story, the Bald-Headed Eagle. Sonic careens over the edge of a cliff. I'm not joshing you, that's how this story started. And he soon falls into a nest belonging to one of Jet the Hawk's more unappealing reject gang members, namely Cyril. God, that is a name that you give your child specifically so that he can be beat up and get his lunch money stolen. So Cyril is an old coward who had his entire flock supposedly roboticized by Jim Cummings, and because of that, he prefers to remain isolated and alone, not willing to, hightail it out of some faraway place out of Robotnik's reach. But not 1 minute after meeting him, does Sonic attempt encouragement for the old bird to spread his wings to freedom, leading him to suddenly stumble across his flock a mere 2 stories below where he was living originally. It took only a few kilometers from his home to find them, and he was said to be the last eagle. Jesus, this is stupid. But not as stupid as Robotnik showing up again in his Rambot, this is getting ridiculous, and smashes Sonic off the cliff, with Robotnik and Snively following suit. End of story. Next! The Lynx is a jinx. Sonic saves a Lynx from a pair of SWAT bots, but upon coming into contact with him, he explains that he inflicts bad luck upon anyone who comes across him. And because of this incredibly unreasonable and flat-out inconvenient ability that Lynxes have in the Sonic universe, Sonic has to hide him elsewhere besides Knothole. But wouldn't you know it? They expose the Lynx's ability to inflict bad luck on the SWAT bots, who managed to capture the freedom fighters so quickly, and after rescuing Sally and the gang, everything ends hunky-dory after. Okay then, finally, we're moving on to something interesting. The story that introduces us to one of my favorite characters in the Sonic franchise. So why don't we get started with this island hedgehog? Sonic and Tails are on a hunt for Robotnik's hovercraft until they stumble across a floating island in the sky. But upon entering the vicinity of the island itself, they are attacked and sent careening onto the island's surface. Upon running about the island for a bit, Sonic and Tails come across the fire-breathing machine bomber from Sonic 3, and they make a dive into the lake, with Tails making an indication that the freedom fighters allow underage drinking. One panel of Hydro City Zone later, and we come face to face with Knuckles the Echidna, the guardian of the Master Emerald. Now, despite the fact that Knuckles has tied up our 2 heroes under the assumption that they're after the Chaos Emerald that keeps the island floating, he allows them a 10-minute head start to leave the island before he supposedly kills them. I mean, nice guy and all, but suppose they are thieves, Knuckles. Do you think they would seriously take your advice to escape the island? Chances are, if they are thieves, they are more likely to steal the Chaos Emerald. Dumbass! What a surprise, Robotnik is the one to have been the guy who stole the emerald all this time, and after Knuckles stumbles upon his hiding place with no emerald in sight, with Sonic and Tails appearing afterwards, they make a pact and head after Robotnik. They manage to locate him, beat the shit out of him, and make an escape out of Robotnik's hovercraft. They leave on good terms, with Knuckles left to be an isolated guardian once more. In our next story, Space in Your Face, we find our recreational freedom fighters working on several wooden statues for no apparent reason, until Sally and Rhoda appear out of the blue to warn the rest of the team that Robotnik has built a prototype Death Egg with the ability to roboticize everything in a 100-mile radius. So, we know the drill. seek and destroy, hijinks ensue, and the freedom fighters find themselves in space. Ha ha ha! 10 points to the Hedgehog to reach outer space first before the Italian plumber. So, the ship that carries Sonic and the freedom fighters gets sucked of its energy by Robotnik himself, and they find themselves escaping to a nearby moon.
The moon!
And upon entering the chocolate-coated planet, Robotnik proceeds to transform into a Megazord that would make the light Gaia Colossus shake his head in dismay. And so, with only one solution left to dangle the carrot of ego in front of Robotnik, Sonic creates a 50-meter feces statue of his very likeness, giving them enough time to board the rocket-powered Gundam back home. On to our next issue. Okay, 2 more issues to go. Let's keep the ball rolling with Tails' Taste of Power. So, in a rather odd start to a story, Sonic is suggestively caught in some sort of plant fetish with Rhoda's garden, which I'm surprised he even had the time to develop given the war and everything. But after Sonic leaves Tails to water the plants, Tails spots a fruit and decides to consume it, unintentionally becoming intelligent beyond his years. So really, he's become the current Tails who knows his shit. But amongst all of this toil and trouble, Antoine appears, doing his usual shindig of, "Help! So-and-so is being attacked by Eggman's omelet maker," or, "Quick! Eggman's decided to mass-produce a bunch of Metal Sonics! Get your shit together and let's go!" You know, it's the usual comedic routine of the day. Do I find any of the recent stories we've talked about particularly memorable? Not really. I only really remember the story with Knuckles, but that's only because Knuckles made his first appearance there. Are these stories harmful? Of course not. They're just formulaic. You can tell as we go through these issues and read these stories, everything is just automated at this point. Here's a new thread. Oh look, a witty character. Don't forget the witty puns. How about an adult joke here and there? Did Sonic use his main protagonist powers? Oh, he sure did. I don't mean to sound redundant at this point, but I mean, that's all these issues are right now. It's kind of pointless to keep going with this since I'm only really summarizing what happens and nothing of particular interest within the character's own stories is showing any signs of popping up. It's just fluff at this point. What do we get out of Tails being smart in this story? He becomes an egotistical, self-righteous prick. Jim Sterling. And what happens when the effects of the apple are digested and made into Fox droppings? He gets captured. Sonic has to go and save him from Robotnik using his own intellect, and, again, a hunky-dory after. Next story, please. Now, here's an interesting one. A do-it-yourself story. This is one story I've been looking forward to for a long time. The writers are on holiday, apparently, so it's our job to write the 3-page short story.
Well now, you know what they say, never pass up an opportunity to get yourself out there on the internet. So, let's get cracking.
It's Sonic the Hedgehog in Sonic's Big Fishing Adventure Battle. Man, I sure do love fishing out in a body of water without a safety jacket in case I topple out during a storm. I seem to forget that I can't swim whenever I do crazy shit like this.
That's cause you eat chili dogs all the time, you fat fuck. It's no wonder you can't swim and I have to save your dumbass from certain doom.
Crab meat, remind me to never question how those 2 idiots never noticed me spying on them despite being right next to them.
Yes, so great, Bruce Valanche. Your random observations have served the story to its full potential. Sir, if I may be so bold as to ask, why did you not simply install a laser cannon on top of the telescope?
Because that would require competent writers who actually take advantage of these dumbass situations.
Man, I sure do love Sega Bass Fishing. I'm glad I sunk 50 hours into that game just for this.
My Stardew Valley powers aren't working!
Wait, we're not even supposed to have computers back in Hub. How do we even know about these games?
Fuck continuity, that's why. Holy shit, that whale is pissed off!
You flung the hook right on its tonsil! Oh god, you're tearing it off!
Man, I remember Pinocchio way differently than this. These two should at least be half donkey by now. At least these fuckers are getting eaten either way.
Boy, I wish we could just fly and hightail the fuck out of here.
That would require effort on my part.
That's it, it's the lobster suit and the nipple tasers later for you. Why the fuck were we even fishing in the first place? Gee, I would have never guessed that you would be involved in this, Honey Boo Boo.
Quick, let's steal their shit and kill them while we have a chance.
And end a war full of terror and sadness so quickly? Nah. Okay, I think we've had enough of that. Let's move on to our next story. Girls just want to have fun.
So many wrong implications to that phrase, but this is a kid's comic, so I'm just gonna say, go out and have fun, you crazy kids.
So, yeah, not gonna lie, the first page of this story turns out rather sexist from the start, and while it does kind of remind me of that scene from Spaceballs, which was one of the best fucking parts in that film.
Lord help me! What? You need it on the bridge, sir. Knock on my door! Knock next time! Yes, sir. Did you see anything? No, sir. I didn't see you playing with your dolls again. Good!
The rest of the story is just kind of a comic foil based on the stereotypical interests of women. Have a shopping mall nearby.
Let's go. Oh my god, going to the mall and wasting hard-earned money is so much fun. Oh Jesus, we've been tricked. Fuck, what are two totally capable warrior women supposed to do? I think I just broke a nail and now my mascara is running. Oh god, I need a manicure.
Alright, I'm quite disgusted at myself for implying anything of that nature. Let's move on. Robotnik captures our two heroines, but they prove themselves to be capable fighters, which is actually a nice friggin' change for once, given the amount of parties that had more sausages in them than Sausage Party itself up to this point. And they go home and pull the gender role reversal joke on Sonic, ending our second last issue. Our final issue for today, let's wrap it up with Rockin' the Bot. Sonic stumbles upon Frogger, whom he helps rescue from a giant mudslide, and as thanks for saving him, Froggy gives Sonic 3 glowing orbs which remind me of those various eco-powers from Jak and Daxter. And like those eco-powers, these stones hold magical powers, which no doubt will play into the scenario of today's story. The green stone giving him the ability of strength, the red granting him elasticity, and the yellow stone making him jump real fucking high. How did the frog get them? Why did he have them? Is there a plentiful amount of these things? Do they work like the power stones in SatAM?
Oh my god, who the hell cares?
Anyways, Sonic fucks off back to Knothole Village. Several days go by, as the Freedom Fighters decide to give one of their near-environmental hazard-free vehicles a test run through the Forbidden Zone. And despite the fact that Tails guarantees that Robotnik won't show up, Robotnik shows up in one of those laser-firing spider thingies in Breath of the Wild, and yet another battle begins. So Sonic decides to try out the power of the multicolored Dragon Balls, but ends up getting them mixed up and unintentionally uses the wrong powers for the wrong scenario. He uses elasticity when getting hit by the boulder, he uses the super jump when trying to do a sonic boost, until he finally uses the right stone to make a giant fucking spatula. Okay, so the story ends with Sonic humorously trying to find the frog he rescued to bargain out some more power stones out of him, and we move on to our next story. What's the big idea?
A question that currently plagues the situation of Sonic comics these days, but why even tempt discussion now?
The Freedom Fighters have noticed Rotor's elongated absence, as he spends most of his time in his room just dicking about with various inventions, while the Freedom Fighters try to speculate what it is. Surprise, it's a thermos. Neat idea, but inevitably a wasteful item that doesn't help tip the scale in ending the war. Now, for our final story. Animal magnetism. Right off the bat, I can already tell what this whole story is going to involve, and it's kind of an obvious clue in what with Bunny being the first character we see on this panel, and the fact that anything metallic-like can be magnetized, but I'm going to give you 3 guesses, and I want you to pick between 3 choices as to what Robotnik's dastardly plan might be. A. Constructing super enhanced and augmented robots with the ability to maim, crush, and destroy any organic being within a 500-mile radius, develop biohazardly formula and or nuclear superweapons capable of producing near-nuclear waste within an environmental-friendly area, or C. Fucking magnets. Well, if we turn over the page and look at the following panels, no fucking shit, it was magnets. And what a surprise, Sonic manages to trick Robotnik into getting his Magneto robot to face Robotropolis, causing the city to fall. How lovely. One speck of anti-magnetism coating on Bunny later, and the story ends.
You can tell, can't you, the amount of dullness and tiredness hinted in the tone of my voice. And it's not to say that I've been hating these comics or anything, I can't believe I have to stress that all the time. I mean, nobody really complains about it, but I would just want to reiterate that and make sure that nobody gets the wrong idea that when I look at these comics, I don't hate them. Like I said earlier, they're just kind of formulaic at this point. But when we return, we're going to take a look at issues 16 to 20, and then we're going to tag that review with a Knuckles the Echidna story arc from issues 1 to 3, and we're going to look at the introduction to the Dark Egg Legion, or just the Dark Legion. They're called the Dark Egg Legions at a later point, sometime in the comic. And we're also going to take a look at the Mega Man 2 comic adaptation from issues 9 to 12. It's quite a lot on my plate, but honestly, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to adding a little bit more fun when we look at Mega Man and Knuckles the Echidna especially. Until next time, take care of yourselves, have a good evening, and as always, stay awesome, lovely viewers. I'll see you all next time.